When you think of Aruba, you're probably picturing sun, sand, and beautiful beaches. But today, we're looking at something totally different, the island's complex world of joint health. And believe me, it holds a pretty surprising puzzle.
So let's just jump right into it. Why is it a paradox? Well, on one hand, if you just look at some of the official numbers, you'd think Aruba has arthritis totally under control. But on the other hand, there's a whole different story brewing just beneath the surface, one that points to a big, growing challenge. So what's really going on?
And here it is, the heart of the whole thing, what we call the low prevalence, high risk paradox. It sounds a little academic, but it's pretty simple. The number of people diagnosed with severe autoimmune arthritis is shockingly low. But at the same time, the risk factors for that common wear and tear type of arthritis, they are absolutely skyrocketing. It's like two completely different trends are happening at once.
To really get to the bottom of this, here's our game plan. First, we'll unpack the numbers behind this paradox. Then, we're going to clarify the two very different kinds of arthritis we're talking about. After that, we'll look at the real-world challenge of actually getting to see a specialist, give you a practical guide for how to do it, and then wrap up by looking at what the future holds for joint health in Aruba.
Okay, first up, let's dig into the data, because this is where that paradox we've been talking about really starts to come into focus. So check out this number, 0.37%. That is the officially reported rate of rheumatoid arthritis in Aruba. Now, when you know that the global average is somewhere between 0.5 and 1%, this looks fantastic, right? But the real question is, does this number tell the whole story? And here's where things get even more interesting. You see, around the world, women usually get rheumatoid arthritis about 3 times more often than men. But in Aruba, that gap is way bigger. It's almost 5 to 1. That's a huge difference, and it really hints that there are some unique local factors at play here.
Okay, so that official rate is low. But here's the number that kind of blows a hole in that theory. 2.5 years. That is the average time it takes from when someone first gets symptoms to when they actually get a formal diagnosis. A delay that long is a huge red flag that the real number of cases could be much, much higher than what's on the books.
Now, to really understand this whole situation, you've got to know that we're not just talking about one disease called arthritis. We're actually dealing with two very different conditions, and they're moving in completely opposite directions.
So on one side, you have rheumatoid arthritis. That's an autoimmune issue where your body's defense system basically gets confused and starts attacking your own joints. Then on the other side, you have osteoarthritis. Think of this as the mechanical wear and tear kind that happens when the cartilage in our joints just breaks down over time from use, age, and extra weight. One is an attack from the inside, the other is a breakdown from outside stress.
So where is this big surge in osteoarthritis coming from? A huge part of the answer is right here on this chart. You know, back in the year 2000, only about 7% of Aruba's population was over 65. Fast forward to today, and that number has shot up to over 17%. This silver tsunami, this rapid aging of the population, is a direct driver of more and more age-related joint issues. And it's not just about getting older. The other huge factor here is weight. I mean, it's simple physics, right? Every extra pound you carry puts more stress on your joints, especially your knees and hips, and that grinds down the cartilage faster. The Aruban government itself has identified this as a major public health problem, confirming it's a huge reason for the rise in joint pain on the island. So, we have this rising tide of osteoarthritis, plus a whole group of rheumatoid arthritis patients who might not even be diagnosed yet. This all leads to a very real practical problem. Who is actually there to treat all these people? Let's look at the reality of getting specialist care. This slide, well, it says it all. 2. That's the number. Just 2 dedicated rheumatology positions for the entire island of Aruba. When you see that, it immediately explains the immense pressure on the system, and it makes sense why that diagnostic delay we talked about even exists. It is a classic specialist bottleneck. So who are these 2 incredibly crucial specialists? Well, first, you have Dr. Rashidi Relam, who is the island's main permanent rheumatologist. The second position is filled through a really vital partnership with the St. Martin's Clinique, which is a top-notch clinic in the Netherlands. They send their own specialists over on a rotating basis. Honestly, this collaboration is absolutely essential to even begin to manage the demand. Okay, given that major bottleneck, knowing exactly how to navigate the system is key. So for this next part, we're going to switch gears and give you a clear, practical, step-by-step guide on how you can get an appointment with a specialist. Your journey to a specialist always starts in the same place, with your family doctor, your house arts. They are the gatekeepers. They'll check you out, and if they agree you need to see a specialist, they'll write you a referral letter. It's called a Verweis brief. Once you have that piece of paper in your hand, then you can contact the hospital's rheumatology department, the polyrheumatology, and get your appointment scheduled. It's a straightforward process. You just have to do it in the right order.
And for that last step, here is the exact information you're going to need. This is the direct phone number and the email for the polyrheumatology at the hospital. Just remember the #1 rule. You absolutely must have that referral letter from your house arts before you call or email them.
All right, finally, let's look ahead. What are the big trends and the stubborn challenges that are really going to define the future of joint health in Aruba?
And we're going to start with some really great news that's on the horizon. Starting around mid-2025, the government is taking steps to put essential arthritis medications back on the list of treatments that are covered by the national AZV insurance. This is a huge, huge deal for patients who depend on these often very expensive drugs just to manage their pain and inflammation. It's a massive step forward. But a pretty big challenge still remains in another critical area of care, ergotherapy, or what you might know as occupational therapy. This is the therapy that helps people with really practical, everyday things, like being able to button a shirt or hold a coffee cup, especially when arthritis hits your hands. But unfortunately, if you're not admitted to the hospital, this incredibly important therapy often isn't covered by insurance, and that leaves a major gap in a person's overall care.
So let's pull it all together. Here's the final scorecard for joint health in Aruba. The official diagnosis rate for rheumatoid arthritis is low, but it's probably masking a bigger problem of underdiagnosis. The primary risk factor is, without a doubt, the coming wave of osteoarthritis, which is being driven by aging and obesity. The capacity to care for people is strained, to say the least, with just 2 specialists. And when it comes to treatment, access to medication is getting better, but crucial therapy is still out of reach for a lot of people.
And this all boils down to one final, really critical question. We can see this tide of osteoarthritis rising, and we know the system is already stretched to its limits. So is Aruba's healthcare system truly ready for what's coming? That's the tough challenge that patients, doctors, and policymakers are all going to have to face together.